Thank you. Thanks again for stopping by today.
My pleasure.
It's always a great pleasure to see you. And I was talking to you as you sat down about it's been a long press tour. I can tell it's long because you were the other day inhaling helium with Jimmy Fallon. So clearly you're at the end.
I needed something to inhale. Yeah.
Something to keep you going in the home stretch.
It was free.
Talk to me a little bit about it's one thing to promote a film as an actor. It's another when you are a co-writer and a director. Does this feel like it's your baby and you have to sort of like guide it home a little bit more than you would as an actor for hire, as it were, in film?
I guess there's that sort of responsibility, although, I have to correct a few things. One is it's Alison Deegan's script, and, we kind of were a bit sort of engineers with it, a little bit, me and Jeremy Brock. And I suppose, is it a baby? It's the weird thing is at the moment that you watch it at various screenings and little bits and pieces, and it's like it's left me, and that's in a very good way. It's not something that I'm holding on to.
Right.
I suppose the metaphor would be that I'm watching it walk now.
Right. Well, and you're watching it through other people's eyes and hearing other people's interpretations, which has got to be exciting. I mean, I would think it breathes new life into something that, at various points in an edit room or whatever, you're so close to that material, to suddenly see it from somebody with fresh eyes has got to be a fascinating process.
Well, I'm a great fan of going to the movies with let's say 300 other people, and the lights go down and you're in the dark and somebody is saying to you once upon a time, whatever it is. Right. And so I know we live in a time where that's harder and harder to achieve, and harder and less and less are people aiming for it, because the common wisdom is that all the great writing is being done for television, which is fine,
right,
as long as there's a conversation between the two somewhere. But with a film like this, you do hope that people don't put it on pause every 20 minutes because they think, I'll get a glass of water or the phone's ringing or whatever. You can't control that. So what's really rewarding to me is to be at a screening of this with a full house and to feel silence descend. Interrupted, I hope, by laughter. And
sure,
you do occasionally hear snuffles. But the silence is the important thing, because you can feel the once upon a time-ness of it really taking hold, and people are being transported.
Does that apply in a comparable way to your experiences on stage when you are hearing the silence?
Yeah. Similar, yeah.
Yeah.
Except on stage you can do something with it.
How so?
Well, you're in charge of the atmosphere, I suppose, to some extent. And for the film, I find myself weirdly, you go to one screen, then you might go to another, and you walk in thinking, gosh, I hope Kate's as good in that scene tonight as she was last night. Oh yeah, she is.
Right, that's not a concern.
So that's a relief.
Yeah, I would think so. So since we have some time, I want to backtrack a little bit on both the acting and directing front. I mean, for instance, I've seen The Winter Guest, and it's been a while since The Winter Guest, which was your first directing and last directing effort. The double-edged sword of being on something as great as Potter was, I think, sounded like the biggest obstacle to getting the time that you required to helm a film again.
But I was directing in that period.
You were
I was directing
theater,
in the theatre, yeah.
Well, so was film directing, has it been an ambition from the start once you got into film, or was it something that organically just came up as the years went on?
It did just sort of happen, but it's a bit like theatre directing. You have to acquire a mixture of nerve and will and idiocy or something to put yourself in that position.
Yeah.
And I think I gathered courage gradually by working with other directors that I admired and noticing that they didn't mind being vulnerable, and that when I or any other actor would say, ask a question, in many ways the most encouraging answer you would get would be, I don't know.
I was going to ask that because I've talked to a lot of filmmakers and I've heard different answers to this about what the attitude on set. Because some people say you go on set and you have to portray that even if you don't, that you have all the answers. And there's some that say that's the worst possible idea. Go in and admit that you need help and need collaboration from all fronts. Do you fall on one side or the other, or somewhere in between? Or?
Well, it's some sort. I don't think there's not a plan. The thing about making a film as an actor or as a director, I think, is it's such a moment-by-moment experience. You know, you don't know in a two-hander like Kate and I have in the film, long scene, that the wind's changed and now we're going to get a plane coming over every 30 seconds. What are you going to do about that? And it's my job to figure out what to do. And so there's lots of unknowns. I think a lot of the questions are answered if you have solid enough pre-production. You're around the table with all these unbelievable experts. That's the good thing about making a film. You're surrounded by people who know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Amazing, to an amazing degree.
And to not exploit their gifts would be a tragedy to utilize.
But also they're very, they're very slow to criticize you. They're always support whatever stupid thing you've just said. And so you have to notice that and encourage them to be helpful and say, well, that might not be the best way of going about that.
Right. I mean, I believe I have some of the right answers, but not necessarily all of them. It's okay to question and provide alternatives.
But you are the final arbiter. That's true.
Yeah.
You know, you will have to go, no, I don't agree with that.
Is it odd to be directing when you are in a costume such as the one that you're wearing in this? Does it feel like an out-of-body thing? Like, I should be wearing director garb right now, but I'm still an actor behind the scenes.
I mean, the thing is, there's enough. I suppose you don't have to go back too far. You go, okay, I'm not going to complain about this because there's this guy called Orson Welles who did it all, and was like on the phone trying to get the costumes, I think, for Chimes at Midnight, and then the costumes didn't arrive, so they did it all in towels or sheets or something. So, and he's in it, and they're great movies, and so you go, well, it's not such a big problem. I've only done it once on film. This is the only time. I'm playing Louis XIV, and it was a useful thought that push us a little closer to now, and Louis XIV might be a movie producer or director.
One of the wiser decisions for any director, if they have the opportunity, is probably to hire Kate Winslet if they have the chance, because she is virtually.
Yes, I can advise people in that direction.
Right. Was that something from the very start of the development of this that seemed?
At the start of the development, or when I was first reading it, and when I wasn't free to direct anything, she would have been way too young. So in a way, it happened the way it was meant to, because I can't imagine anybody else playing it, and it had to wait until she was of a certain age to be. She's playing somebody who couldn't possibly have existed.
Sure.
We have to make you believe that she could have, in the middle of stuff that really did happen. This is the movies. Here's a piece of fantasy shafted into reality. Kate has those qualities. She'll make you believe that this was... In fact, people do come out saying, she really existed? Why don't I know about her?
Right.
She does the homework. She's got the gravitas. She doesn't mind, and the humour. She opens her mouth and you believe it.
Which is what you want.
Yeah. And she doesn't mind getting wet and dirty.
Yes, and she does in this film, definitely. And Matthias, am I correctly pronouncing his
He doesn't mind how you say it, but it's Matthias.
Matthias, yeah. Who's somebody that I think I saw first in Rust and Bone and blew me away, and people were catching on to this. Was that where you first encountered him, and was he again?
Yeah, I think it was like an explosion into everybody's consciousness of seeing that film. And his name was suggested. I looked him up on YouTube because I thought, well, it's all very well suggesting his name, but he's Belgian, and these people are all speaking the same language with the same accent, and also he's playing a very famous Frenchman who's going to be speaking perfect English. Anyway, weirdly, I happened to be in Belgium at the time, and I YouTubed him and found him doing an interview in LA for Rust and Bone, speaking perfect English but with an American accent, so I looked fine. And as it turned out, he was half an hour away at that moment in Antwerp. So we met the next day.
Some things are meant to be, I suppose. You mentioned YouTubing his name. Have you made the mistake, have you fallen down the rabbit hole of YouTubing or Googling your own name? Do you ever, is that just...
No, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
No, that way illness lies.
Because you know, and I know this is probably one of your least favorite subjects that it comes up often, is about your voice and the obsession with, I mean, you have an amazing, unique voice that is talked about often. Like, did you sound like this when you were like 12? When you were 14? When did the...
No, any more than you do.
I came out of the womb sounding like this. It was very odd.
To me, I sound completely different to whatever I have now got used to hearing in a year of editing. So I don't hear that voice.
Right.
So it doesn't mean anything to me.
Was there an awareness at a certain point when people started to talk about an obsession or doing imitations? Like, is that in recent times, or is that something that you started to notice years and years ago? People talking about doing an Alan Rickman.
Well, it's not something to spend too much time thinking about.
Except when people like me remind you.
Yeah, I think if Anthony Hopkins was sitting here now, he's the most incredible mimic, and my generation is very used to hearing people like him doing perfect impersonations of people like Olivier and
Sure.
Ralph Richardson and John Gielgud. I hope these names mean something to
They
the
do to
people
me.
watching
Okay.
this program. Or currently, Ian McKellen. A lot of actors impersonate Ian. I honestly don't know what comment I should make about it. Okay, all right.
Well, I mean, do
nothing I can do about it. This is the way I speak.
Do these actors ever do it to your face? There's like, I'm seeing Tom Hiddleston, who has done it for me and many others in a couple weeks. Has he ever done it for you, to you?
No.
That's probably not wise.
He has not.
Do you have any message I should impart to Tom? Lay off? Take a break, dude?
I would know.
You're okay. You're okay.
I don't have advice for other people.
Going back in terms of your amazing filmography and career, I mean, the filmography, it's fascinating to think about. Your debut, of course, was in Die Hard, your film debut. Mm-hmm. And you were what? You were 39, 40, somewhere around then, which I can't even imagine happening now in today's climate, where this youth-obsessed culture where people are plucked at 15 or 16 or not at all. Do you think that in retrospect that helped? I mean, you didn't have to confront fame of the order of magnitude that you do until you had lived a life. You were an adult.
Well, I didn't. It's just sort of, if there's a pattern to my working life at all, I didn't decide to train until I was 25 anyway. So, I'd had a whole other career as a graphic designer before that.
Sure.
So here we are with a bit of hindsight, and you look back and go, well, things happen the way they do. You're not always, certainly not, don't feel your sense of your hands on a steering wheel. It's just a sort of a compulsion once you've dealt with the art school bit, which seemed necessary.
Right.
And now here I am years down the line directing a movie, and I could not have thought of doing that without the art school bit. So things happen for a reason, I guess.
When you made the shift at around 25 from graphic arts to acting, was it seamless? Was it the first time you were employed, and the first couple of times, did it feel like I have an aptitude for this? They are recognizing my talent. This will go fine. I can make a living of this. Or did it feel like there were years of struggle and questioning?
What I did was apply to RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and that still feels like one of the hugest achievements, is getting in there.
It's validation that it's
and having to get a scholarship, because I had already had funding to be an art student, so there was never going to be any funding, and there certainly wasn't any money in my family that was going to support this. So I had to audition twice to get a scholarship. And this was in the days after I'd finished the training, when you came out, you had to do 40 weeks in regional theatre in order to have an equity card. You were not allowed to work on film, television, or in the West End without really special dispensation. And so there was a sense of an apprenticeship, and you weren't thinking career moves. You were just thinking stay in a job. And then, like every actor at that time would probably tell you the same story, there were many months of being out of work when I came back to London or went backwards and forwards to the regions. So there's a lot of muscle memory of in work, out of work.
Yeah, and I would think that I would think it also that must help give you some perspective when, you know, here you sit today and you're recognized constantly and validated constantly, and people, you know, and rightfully so, commend you on this amazing body of work, and knowing you're the same person you were then. I mean, give or take, obviously many different experiences, but perception of you is so different. It's just a fascinating thing to think about, that you know, you could have stayed with a different career track and this kind of...
Well, my training, certainly as a graphic designer, gave me an ethic about typography. Because this is before computers. Sure. So you really had to, and we had a really brilliant and rigorous head of department called Ed Wright, and so it was like a small religion, the spacing between letters, and we had to hand set type. We weren't just sitting on a computer saying, "Oh, stretch that P a bit and squish that, and that will be fine." You know, we having to measure and then balance, and and I've always found that rather beautiful.
Yeah.
So, and the same was true at RADA, I think. There isn't gradually an ethic because of some, you know, our lives are measured out by teachers, I think. People, you go, okay, that teacher, then English teachers at my old school, Ed Wright at art school, and a couple of others, and then various teachers I had at RADA, and gradually you assemble yourself because you test yourself against what they're telling you.
Sure.
I guess I now have a set of beliefs, and by and large, that would be you hand yourself over completely to the character you're playing. You're part of what you're trying to be is the most efficient channel you can be between the writer and the audience. That actually it's not about you, and you must hand yourself over to that. And if the equipment doesn't fit somehow, then you have to work on that bit of equipment. If it's your voice or your physique or whatever, you have to work at it.
Well, and when you start to do film, did you find that you needed to develop a whole different set of skills? Or did you have to kind of start from scratch in some respects?
Yeah, because when I was doing Die Hard, I'd never made a film before, and I'd done some television, but I'd never worked under that sort of pressure in Hollywood. It was such a heavy spotlight on what you were doing and so much at stake. And I only knew to approach it like I'd approach a theatre play. So John McTiernan said fairly early on, he said, I've learnt with you I have to have everything ready for the first take. Because I was like, a greyhound out of a trap. And I really had to learn what I was supposed to do with take 2, 3, 4, 5.
I've got nothing left. What do I do now?
Yeah, now what? I did it.
Where did, as much as I love your portrayal of Hans Gruber, I also love your portrayal of Bill Clay in the film. Where did that voice come from? Where did that pleading, poor American come from? Was there any inspiration for that?
In a way, that was all about, I think many people tell various stories about that, how that happened, but the truth of it from my point of view is I was being fitted for a load of terrorist gear, and I looked at the guys who were going to be playing my henchmen, and I said, why am I wearing this stuff when look at the size of them? Wouldn't it be more interesting, this is me thinking I'm in a play, and I've got a right to say something about the plot. So I'm saying, wouldn't it be more interesting if I wore a suit? And then, and also I said, if I wore a suit, there could be a scene where I met him, and then I could pretend to be one of the hostages.
Right.
Whatever anybody else tells you, that's what happened.
That's what you remember.
Then people tested me out on an American accent, and I just unless I know what specific, I just have an American accent. I don't know what it is or where it's from. But yeah, I went away, and I came back I went away from LA, came back ready to start shooting, and I was handed these pages of a script, and suddenly I was being fitted for an Armani suit. So it pays to think about it, and anyway, it was a good idea.
Yeah. Did this might seem like a silly question, but I kind of also appreciate it. Maybe it's not calling it a cameo, but in the third Die Hard film, you appear for like about 3 frames when you are referenced, when your character is referenced. Did you have to like say yes to that? Did you have any control over that? Did you?
I can't remember now. Actually, well, I think they just used a still, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it's literally just a couple seconds of you falling. That obviously that shot. Was there ever any insane idea we found Hans Gruber's hair, we're going to clone him, we're going to bring him back from the dead?
Or he fell into an awning.
I'm saying, if we're cloning dinosaurs, we can clone Hans Gruber.
I think the awning would have been a better idea. You know, he bounced.
Oh, I see. Oh,
it's
brilliant.
Amazing.
This is the kind of idea that people need to bring up.